Right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Justin and I are back this week, knocking it around, talking U.S. soccer. How's it going, Justin?
Hey, it's going well, Marcus. Good to be
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Big month. We are in March 2022. What's happening this month?
Oh, nothing. There's no events are taking place.
Yeah.
Just
MLS started.
qualifying. Yeah, yeah, just qualifying for the World Cup or not.
Yeah, yeah, pretty crazy. Who we got slated for this window that's coming up? We are away at Azteca.
That's correct. And then home to Panama and away to Costa Rica.
Yeah, how you feeling about that window, that group?
Oh, it's very winnable, not in terms of 9 points, but in terms of qualifying. We've shown that we can go toe to toe with Mexico. Azteca is the next challenge on top of that. But even getting a draw there and just 3 points versus Panama at home is key. And I think the 3 points versus Panama is the one thing that everyone is counting on, which makes sense. They're the weakest of the three teams, probably. They might be a little bit stronger than Costa Rica, but
We've been successful
anyway,
at home. We've been successful
yeah.
at home. We've had other than what the Canada game,
Yeah,
we've been able to score. We've been able to defend. We've had a couple of clean sheets at home.
But ultimately, if we can't beat Panama at home, we don't deserve to go to the World Cup ahead of them. We lost to them on the road. Now it's our turn.
I agree with that. And we're 4 points clear of Panama, 5 of Costa Rica going into the window, I believe.
Yeah. It's in our hands.
Yes, it is. It is. Well, we want to talk a couple things, but yeah, mostly on the attacking side of the ball, like who's scoring goals, where goals will come from, and kind of who are some of our weak links when it comes to that side of the ball. So just before diving in, any injury updates or player updates that we should probably share for context. People may not know Weston McKennie will not be available this window. That's pretty crucial player. He's been almost part of every single win, I think, except for once that he has not been on the pitch for a W. Zardes, it appeared, got benched, going into his first club match of the season. Conrad has been left off as a potential. I know Greg doesn't seem to rate him, but with some of the injuries, I would think he's probably in the mix. He has been in World Cup qualifying mix. Is there anybody else we're leaving off, or people coming back from injury, or?
Obviously Richards is still working his way back.
Right.
We're not sure about Reyna. I think Eric Williamson is one who could come back here as MLS gets going. He was part of Greg's team prior to his injury and was playing well in the Gold Cup. So he's one to keep an eye on. And then Daryl DK as well. But I think it seems like DK is going to miss the window.
Yeah, both keepers that have started so far, both Stefan and Turner, are dealing with some injuries as well, correct?
That's right. Yep. Ethan Horvath's season is in full force.
Yeah. Ethan, I think Sean Johnson's probably in that mix, having coming off the championship win and been a part, those two have been a part of the qualifying so far. So it'll be interesting what happens there and how that impacts, our back line and Greg's confidence playing out of the back. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's some key injuries.
Yeah, and Horvath has been using his feet a lot in his games with Forest, so that's been good to see. And he's not the most sure-footed. I think he's an upgrade over Turner, but it's good to see that he is being forced to play that way with his club. And obviously, he's gotten a lot of reps doing that in training.
Right, and Forest starting keeper got a red card, so he's out 3 matches. So Horvath is in, starting, getting championship minutes, right on the cusp of the promotion playoff battle there in the championship. So it's gonna be interesting who Greg calls in. And then Busio was out due to COVID last window. It wasn't an injury, so he should be, assuming he's cleared and able to travel, he should be back in the mix.
Yep.
All right. So on the attacking side of the ball, so our goal scoring or lack thereof, in several of these games, obviously defense has been Greg's kind of the heart of his efforts. Like, who do you see some of our weakest attacking players? Who has hurt us from a goal scoring perspective, either not finishing, not linking up well? Who are some of those call outs that you would want to point out so far this window that we'd want to avoid or potentially replace?
Well, let me reframe it a little bit, but I think the guys whose spots are the most in jeopardy or who are the weakest in their security would be Paul Arriola, Christian Roldan when deployed as a winger, if we're talking about the front line, Jesse Zardes, and Jordan Morris at the top of that list.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would wonder for me, legit. Even though he hasn't really been playing since earlier in the windows, would be another name I'd probably call out.
Yeah, I was thinking of him more in the midfield.
Oh yeah, fair enough. And what are some names that pop to mind? Like, what are some folks that push are right on the cusp of knocking a couple of those names off?
Yeah, competition at striker seems to be wide open, but the one player who is banging goals in right now is Jordan Peafock in Switzerland. He is the league leader in that league right now. He's put in the most goals, and I think he has 3 or 4 assists over his past few games as well. You have to take all of his club accomplishments with a grain of salt, just like you do with Brendan Aronson playing in Austria.
Right.
It's not a Premier League level, right? But I don't think that it's that big of a gap from MLS either. It's the kind of thing that we've seen from players like Zardes and what Pepe was doing in MLS. So it's so difficult sometimes to compare and to translate. Well, what if Josh Sargent was playing in Switzerland? What if Jordan Peafock was playing with Augsburg, getting no service in the Bundesliga? But he is in great form. So he's the first name on my mind.
Yeah, he's top of mind for me too. And I do think something that's under discussed is the psychological implication, especially for a striker and a goalkeeper. I feel like they're under so much pressure, so few chances. Like strikers are measured by scoring goals, and I look no further than like Josie Altidore moving to Sunderland after scoring 27 goals in Eredivisie, moves to England, and you could tell when he wore his US kit that he just was not as confident in front of net. Just that rip in the back of the net, just feeling that confidence, regardless of the competition you're playing against. I feel like there's a tremendous value there. And guys like Zardes taking months off, Jesus Ferreira, guys like that haven't played in months and are just kind of getting back into form. Like the psychology behind that when you need a goal, to me, there's tremendous value there, and somebody that deserves to be in the three. Where he starts, which game, we can debate that, but to me, he deserves to be there because he's the only one of the strikers.
Oh yeah, he's the most informed forward that we have in the pool right now. Right. I want to say Pulisic and Weah both have been contributing and playing well for their clubs, but we don't have anybody who's scoring goals the way Peafock is.
That's it. So Pepe has carried a tremendous load, in our World Cup qualifying. No doubt, tremendous value to this point. A lot of people are questioning kind of where is he now? With the transfer, we're not hearing his name, doesn't have a goal yet. Where do you see him in that group of strikers? Is he the guy? That's got 3 goals, 3 assists, I think so far, leading the US. Is he the guy you start in a must-win game like a Panama at home if we don't get, significant points in Azteca?
I think it's between Pepe and Peafock. Their styles of play are a little bit different. Peafock more of a finisher in the box, get it in his general area and he can find a way to put it home. And I don't want to say that Peafock's not good in the hold-up either, because he is. He uses his frame well, his long legs. He stretches himself out, keeps defenders away, keeps the ball secure. I think what I love about Pepe's skill set is how quickly he's able to combine. So that Jesus Ferreira drops into the midfield deeply, takes a touch, and finds good passes. He's a good chance creator. But with Pepe, he just has that one-touch layoff where he's coming forward, the wing and the fullback is overlapping, and he just adjusts the pass that's coming to him to perfectly play it into the path of that onrushing teammate. So it just depends on how the team is set up, but I think it has to be one of those 2 players. You could make an argument for Josh Sargent as well, I suppose.
Yeah, talk about Sargent a little bit. I mean, he's had, the brace against Watford, I believe it was. He's been playing a little bit better, but he's been out on the wing. How does that translate to the national team playing striker? What is that skill set that he's learning, or bringing? How does that translate to the 9, or is it like a Weah, or somebody like that maybe we would try as a 9 in a different scenario?
Interesting. It's interesting because the last time Sargent played with the national team, he played on the wing. That was in Honduras, and he looked absolutely awful.
Right.
Now, I think the difference is probably that it was a new experience for him doing that with the US, and he's been practicing it and training that position now at Norwich for a little bit of time. But he looks really good with Norwich. He's not as clean on the ball necessarily as Pepe or Peafock, but he works really hard, and his ability to combine with his teammates. So while under pressure, while under no space, to be able to make that turn or to just tap it to the next man to allow the build-up to continue. Those are special things. You know, he put it on display against Liverpool this week. He got the assist, but more than the assist, he just caused problems and he made himself useful to Norwich. So he's a player who has to find a role with the team, whether that's as a 9, whether that's as a winger, just depends on whether you're looking for your 9 to be the man to score goals, because I don't know that Sargent's that guy right now.
Right. Yeah, that's where I wonder, you know, do you try Weah up top? Do you potentially slide Brendan Aronson or Pulisic underneath, since you're short Weston McKennie as well, you know, behind and not necessarily deployed as a winger? You kind of have some interesting options with some of these versatile players that are playing, you know, 2 different roles. I'd be curious to see what we'll see next window.
And I think that Greg is not going to make wholesale changes. That's the one thing we can count on, is that we're probably not going to see, you know, Weah as a 9 or someone in a new position. Aronson has played centrally for the US before, although not well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some changes just in terms of selection, like we're talking about, of Peafock coming in.
Yeah, Peafock, and then you're out Weston McKennie. So, you know, we can talk about that in a second, but, you know, it could be interesting to see what his depth chart options are and who's available. Talk a little bit, you know, I think you touched on it, but like the false 9 versus kind of a more traditional striker. We've seen Greg a little bit experimentally in that, you know, and we've got different skill sets in the you know, in the striker base. Like, what does that look like? And, you know, kind of walk us through like where you see the false 9 versus a more traditional striker role with the US.
Yeah, I'm not very high on a false 9 because the team has a lot of players who naturally create chances. Now, the team is not creating a lot of chances. So there's an argument to be made, certainly, that we should bring in a false 9 just to get more and more chances. But in the game that Jesus Ferreira started in the most recent window, he did a great job creating chances, but he also missed 1, if not 2, fairly major openings that could have been goals. So there has to be balance of chance creation and then actually finishing the chance, scoring a goal. And we don't have many of those players, the guy who comes in to score the goal, to finish the play. And so that's something that we need to improve on. And I think that's why it does make sense to play with a true 9, so that guys like Pulisic and Weah have someone who's just finishing off the great work that they do out wide and the service that they're providing.
No, I agree with that. And you know, we did score 2 set piece goals in the last game, but it has not been part of our arsenal. You know, like who are even some of those aerial threats or set piece threats from a goal scoring perspective, you know, not necessarily the service, but on the actually finishing it, as you mentioned, you know, who can even provide that in the pool?
Well, Walker Zimmerman is one. He's a target. I think Peafock is another who loves set pieces. He just loves the ball in the air coming in his direction. Most of our center backs are pretty good in the air. I want to say John Brooks is pretty good on set pieces. Matt Miazga is not too bad. Chris Richards did score a goal for Hoffenheim this year, although he's not lauded for his aerial ability. The big miss, obviously, is McKennie. It's so special to have a central midfielder who can come in and do that.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, that's the people that come to mind are center backs, which is a little bit worrisome when you're relying on your center backs for a lot of your threat. You know, when you're going that deep and that few chances, and we haven't really found even the service, in my opinion, yet. You know, consistently. But if we're not expecting goals from strikers, we're not expecting goals from set pieces. Like where are they going to come from? Who do you see as kind of the guy to help us in this window, short, you know, Weston McKennie and some of the other names that we mentioned?
Well, this is the reason why I do think we need a true 9, because that becomes the question. It's hard to answer of who is the scorer. If we don't have a goal scoring striker, it truly just becomes a group effort of, we're going to have this build up that's fluid, and it's going to lead for a chance for someone, whether that's an onrushing midfielder, whether that's a winger cutting inside and just making a fantastic 1v1 or 1v2 run. It's really just up to the team to find it. And that's why I like having that dedicated 9 to say, no, we're going to create a chance and this player is going to put it away.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously Aronson is capable and he's shown that. You know, we've gotten goals from Pulisic. You know, outside of that, I'm trying to think like the outside backs. You know, I know Des had that banger. Jedi scored a couple. You know, trying to think who else has even scored. Weah obviously has one.
Yeah, that seems to be the answer, really, right? The fullbacks are our scorers.
Yeah, yeah. Which again, kind of back to the center back, like goals are goals. I'll take them, but it's a bit concerning to me from an attacking perspective that we're leaning so heavily on our back line,
Yeah,
across the board for goals, which is, one or two players out.
yeah, it's
Um,
not how you want to be.
no, we talked a little bit kind of before the pod about the guy for their team. I think there was an athletic article talking about that recently, a couple months back of we don't really in our pool have the guy for the team. Like, how does that impact? I've seen sort of people protecting Berhalter and that it's like, hey, he's got a decent system. They're just not executing because that's not what they do for their team. Who are the guys for their teams that you see that should be bringing that to the national team?
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being the one single player in your team that everyone looks to provide that dynamic, like a Zlatan Ibrahimovic, where he is the focal point, and being a key player, a key part of the attack, a player who bears a lot of responsibility for chance creation and for finishing chances, who, when you step on the field, you're looking for goals, assists, or at least created chances, or else your minutes are going to dwindle.
Yeah,
I think that's true for Christian Pulisic. It's true for Gio Reyna, Tim Weah, Brendan Aronson. That's four attackers right there who are expected to produce every time they step on the field. And I think that extends to the midfield as well. Weston McKennie is his production goes beyond the score sheet, but it definitely does touch that area as well.
sure. Yeah, I think Aronson's a good call out. I think Peafock, is carrying that load for his team. Clearly, he's leading the league, regardless of the competition. As you said, I would have put Zardes in there last year. Obviously the season hasn't started, but I would say he's one of the key pieces for Columbus's engine to go. But beyond that, yeah, I don't think we have other than the names that you mentioned. Which is crucial, right? Like they lose minutes immediately. They're under immense pressure, which I think is tremendous value to have that pressure on them. That's where we're going to grow. That's how we're going to grow as a soccer nation.
Exactly.
From a service perspective, there's been a lot of commentary on that, questions on that. Greg says that the outside backs are kind of our secret weapon. They're key to the attack. Who are our best crossers of the ball, providing service, providing through balls? Who are you seeing that's setting up the team for success from the attacking side?
I think Jedi is a pretty good crosser. I'm thinking about him coming in from the left-hand side, and he's used to just smashing crosses in for Fulham. He does it and gets some assists for them in the championship. I don't think that Dest specializes in crossing. He will send in that low-driven ball that is really good sometimes, but I don't think his crosses are super successful. And I don't know that we have another player in the pool. I guess Brian Reynolds is one. If you're focused on just this one attribute, I think Reynolds has a really nice cross.
I think Shaq Moore might be the one of the best in the pool. Now he's not playing right now, and there's reasons not to include him. But for me, from career standpoint, I think he's been one of the more dangerous guys. I think Yedlin's capable. He's shown that he's got a assist or two in the summer, and but yeah, I think we're pretty limited, honestly, in my opinion, from that standpoint, as well as set pieces, right? Like who are danger guys from a set piece delivery standpoint.
And one other name I'll throw out with the crossing is Joe Scally. He does have a couple of nice deliveries for Gladbach this year, although that was earlier in the season.
Fair.
On a set piece, Gio Reyna is the clear, obvious choice when we do have a free kick in a dangerous area. Ultimately, I'd like to see us use more of our free kicks to look for teammates in the box, as opposed to always having to go for goal directly from the kick. After Reyna, we don't have a lot of great free kick takers. Busio is another one. Acosta has been lauded
Costa's
for
delivered.
his deliveries.
Yeah.
I don't know about Acosta necessarily taking shots toward goal as much. I don't think I've seen that from him. There's a couple of technical players deeper in the pool, like a Julian Green and Emmanuel Sabi, that I've seen score really nice free kicks, but those guys are further down the depth chart.
Yeah, I'm not keen on Pulisic taking any more set pieces, honestly, at least to this point. It doesn't seem like it's been a strength. When you look at a couple of those names like Acosta, Busio, obviously Reyna, but would you think about moving one of them into the starting lineup based off of that skill set, based off of the ability to add set pieces? Like, is the gap between Adams and Acosta so big defensively against a team like Panama that you're like, oh, we have to have Adams on the field, they're dangerous? Or do you say, I think Acosta can handle the load? I think adding his set piece capability, do you consider swapping somebody in that adds that element?
It's part of the calculation, but I don't think you make the decision just on set piece delivery. If Gio Reyna is healthy, it makes the problem a lot simpler.
Yeah.
But looking back at some of the previous windows, I think Christian Pulisic took a lot of flack for his set piece delivery. And on rewatch, a lot of his crosses and free kicks actually came into good places. We just couldn't get ahead on it, or we couldn't put it on goal. So I don't think that there is a sheer drop off from Pulisic's free kicks to Acosta's.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess the results are part of it. For me, the two that come to mind were like the free kicks outside the box that he just sailed over the goal. Those are the two that kind of come to mind. I was at that Canada game, and it came like right into our section. It was like, oh man, like we needed that one,
Yeah, Pulisic does not get to take direct free kicks to goal anymore. That doesn't get to happen. Yeah. If he's going to send it into the group of teammates in the box, I'm for it.
Yeah. So looking a little deeper to kind of central midfield, McKennie was immensely valuable on the attacking side of the ball. Like where could we expect goals to come from? Like who are the eights that would bring value to either scoring? I know you mentioned Busio service, Costa potentially his service, but where else could we expect goals to come from centrally?
The only player that comes to mind besides Gio Reyna would be Yunus Musa. Musa goes on some really fun attacking runs in La Liga where he has been steps away or just a block away from some SportsCenter top 10 goals. I don't necessarily see him doing that with the US just because of the different role Greg has the midfielders playing. He's got the 2 8s playing so wide, almost hugging the sideline. But Musa is the player that comes to mind.
Yeah. What about Luka or somebody like that? Like what value did they bring on that side of the ball? Obviously he's strong defensively, but what do you see him bringing to the pool or others, in that depth chart? Legit, has scored a goal. He scored a goal for the Revs this weekend. He was historically one of the biggest contributors on the US team from that position in the attack. Where do you see a couple of those guys in the pool?
Yeah, Leggett is nice in the final third. He arrives in the box well, and he typically finishes cleanly. Historically, I think I would have rated Leggett over Luka in that one attribute of just the ball is rolling to a player at the top of the 18. Do I want Luka or Leggett to try to finish it? I think I would take Leggett a lot of times.
Yeah.
Obviously, Luka scored a beautiful chip this past week, so I don't want to take that away from him. But the main things we get from Luka, I think, are ball progression, both through his aggressive dribbling forward and through his progressive passing, and his defensive pressure as well. I think he does a great job for such a small player, and one that looks like he could be, that other players could be physically imposing their will on him. He does a great job making a nuisance of himself. So I don't look to Luka to score goals, but he is capable of playing the final ball.
Yeah, I'm actually, I never want Weston McKennie not on the field, but I'm actually extremely intrigued by a Luka Musa, dual 8s. Like I think their skill set could really complement each other very well in a way that would disrupt, where Musa could carry the ball forward, bring, draw Panama potentially in and forward, and Luka unlocking, kind of their back line as they sort of draw forward, with his, lethal passing. And it could be really intriguing with a speed merchant like Weah or, even a Pulisic or Brendan Aronson, just kind of that work rate with Pepe in front, or Peafock. Hopefully, one of those two kind of there to dunk the ball.
That's the hope. Yeah. I can't leave this discussion either without talking about Dwayne Holmes. It's almost become a meme that Greg Velasquez on the Scuffed podcast is always referencing Dwayne Holmes, but I've seen some clips from him recently, and I'm hoping to clip him in the games he has coming up this weekend and Monday. He's such an interesting player. I saw the term McKennie adjacent used for Dwayne Holmes. He's much smaller, but very athletic, very shifty. He can unbalance the defender, stop and go, loves to dribble, can push the ball past the defender. He has crisp, progressive passing as well. He can just zip it on to the next teammate. I think that Dwayne Holmes is the logical next player after Musa and Luka if we're talking about ball progression. And if we're talking about that ability to make a difference in the final third as well, because he's played as an attacking midfielder for Huddersfield. He's played as a winger and also as a box eight. Going back a little further, he's even played as a defensive mid and as a fullback, but he's been all over the field. But that skill set he has, the dribbling, the balance under pressure, the composure, the physicality, and his defensive range as well, those things really look good in Greg's system.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. He's one that intrigues me. I was a big fan of Williamson. I was bummed that he got hurt. I don't know that he will be healthy enough and kind of fit enough to really make a contribution this March. What other names are kind of on the periphery for you from a winger, forward, central midfield? Again, kind of focus on the attacking side, thinking from a goal, like we need a goal. Who are you pulling in, to be able to pull off the bench to get a goal for us or support our scoring?
Yeah, we've touched on Peafock and Sargent, touched on Holmes. In the midfield, Alex Mendez and Timothy Tillman are two that come to mind. Tillman's a really special dribbler, and he can find some nice passes to open up the defense. Those unlocking the door passes are Alex Mendez's specialty. I've been really impressed and encouraged by Mendez's growth in the Portuguese league this year. And I think he's a step down from the others in terms of the MMA aspect of the midfield, the actual physical tenacity, the defensive aggressiveness, some of those things. But if we're looking for someone to open things up, which is so often a problem for us, it's different than that Luca De La Torre role. Luca's so good picking the ball up from our center back and bringing it into the final third. Mendez is really good for that killer pass, that bit of incisiveness that we so often lack. So he's another one that comes to mind. And there's some wingers on my list as well that go ahead.
Yeah, who are a couple of those names? I know Conrad's been benched, so some people may be low on him. He did score a goal and had a corner kick that turned into a goal in Europa qualifying, I think it was.
Yeah, Conrad is one for sure. And I think when we're talking about a player being benched, it's at Marseille, right? Yeah. So then if we're going to say Conrad's benched, he's not getting minutes from Marseille, therefore Paul Arriola leapfrogs him in the depth chart, or Christian Roldan leapfrogs him in the depth chart. We have to ask, okay, is that because Arriola and Roldan would be getting time at Marseille?
Right.
Because I don't think that's the case. But it's a question of whether his skill set is one that's going to be useful and whether he's in good enough form to be able to actually use the skills. The second question is open. The first one I think has been answered. He's an elite dribbler, and he's been creating chances well for Marseille when he does get on the field. His technique is really good. And even in his first World Cup qualifying appearance away to El Salvador, which was not a fantastic or a magnificent showing, you could see that ability on display. And you could see how 2 or 3 defenders would start to come to him as soon as the ball arrived in that area, because they were ready for him to dribble and take on the first man and even the second man. And that ability to be a magnet, to bring the defense out, and then be able to take a touch and unlock someone else, whether that's the overlapping fullback or to drop it back to the midfield where there's now an advantage, that's something special. And players like Roldan and Arriola simply don't strike that fear into CONCACAF defenders that they're going to create something.
I would love to, even if it's a friendly or something, see him, Pepe Weah with MMA behind him. Like I think he is so well suited to that collective group with his skill set to unlock, to open things up, to draw defenders. I think he would open up a lot. I don't, El Salvador, I think how many guys, like 7, 8 debuts that game. Sargent was not in great form from a finishing perspective. There's some missed opportunities there. They were still learning the system. I don't think it was a great debut, but I do think his skill set suits extremely well to that athletic group. And I'd be extremely intrigued to see him come off the bench with that group, on the field.
And I don't know, it's difficult to weight a player's overall ability, one versus the other, to say Conrad is a better overall player than Arriola or things like that. But I think it's easy to say in this specific area of dribbling,
right.
Going at a man 1v1 and creating with the ball at your feet, Conrad is special in our pool, maybe top 2, top 3.
Yeah, Reynolds and Pulisic, kind of probably clear, but he's right there, in that.
Yeah, Weah maybe as well. Maybe he's top 4.
Fair enough.
But there, with an unlimited roster size, you can bring a 5th winger or a 6th winger, whatever it is, and have him be this specialist. And that's something that we haven't done enough of in qualifying. but it's okay to recognize that some players fit different situations and game states better than others, and that they can be really useful.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. Who else is on that list? Does a Gioacchini? Who else is kind of right there in that, what, 5 to 8, assuming, let's say, Reyna's out potentially. Who else is in that list for you?
Yes, Nico Joaquini's next. He's been a consistent player this year in Ligue 1 for Montpellier, and he's never looked bad with the USMNT either.
Yeah.
Whether that's at the 9 or on the wing, he's good technically, he's good physically, he plays quickly. Unlike Conrad, Joaquini doesn't have that one facet of his game that just jumps out at you,
Right.
but he's a very solid all-around player. I remember being really impressed with his hold-up ability in the 1-0 win over Qatar in the Gold Cup.
Yep.
We got the late goal, which he created on a fantastic run and a 1-2 that he ended up playing to Zardes for the final touch. But once we got that goal, he had several, I want to say 3 or 4 different moments of keeping the ball and really frustrating defenders tried to take it off his feet.
Yep. I think Matthew Hoppe, he got in this week at Mallorca. He's on the cusp, he's on the edge. To me, he's got that like Dempsey snark to him. Like I just think we lack. Maybe McKennie has a little bit of it. I think Pulisic's got it in him. But Hoppe just consistently kind of has that grin, that like, no nonsense, like just somebody you want around, in a game that is a must win in a needed moment. And I felt like Gioacchini, he had some big moments at big times, like when we needed it, and has not looked bad in a U.S. jersey, in my opinion, so far that he's got his chances.
I agree about Hoppe. He has an edge to him. He's not tearing anything up in La Liga right now, but we've seen just how good he can be with the U.S. And I think he is a great case study for what does an average La Liga substitute performance, how does that translate to a Costa Rica or a Panama? Because if I'm Greg Berhalter or if I'm the defender for Panama and I see Hoppe coming off the bench in the 65th or 75th minute, I'm groaning. He's a player that's fun to come onto the field late. He can add a spark, creative. The only other player on my list is Kevin Paredes. He has yet to play for Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga after joining from DC United. And he seems to be seen mainly as a wingback, but we know that he has really good attacking skills, and he came through DC United's academy as a skillful, tricky winger. He's another player where if it's situational, if it's off the bench, I can see him really causing problems and wreaking havoc.
Sure. Yeah. He had a late season injury, if I remember right, too. Like he had to leave, or it was at the US camp, it was in December, and had to leave for a couple of weeks. So I wonder if some of that may be kind of lingering as he's getting his training up to speed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he had both. He had a late season injury, came to camp, got hurt in camp.
That's right.
So it was a rough time. One other on my list on the wingers is Paxton Aronson. That's maybe more of an edge shout. He might be a little bit further down the list, but I just love what this kid brings. Every time he gets on the ball, he's so saucy. He creates, he plays quickly, all these things. I think he probably lacks in some of these areas that we look at for Ariola and other guys where the defensive side. I don't know that he's necessarily going to do as much on the defensive side of the ball as like an Ariola or even a Joaquini, because I think Joaquini's defense is strong as well. But I love Paxton's creativity.
Yeah. Justin, you and I have gotten some grief, over the years, especially probably the last year about like kind of debating fringe players or, like why it's important, as you brought up on Conrad. I think, looking at 2 goalkeepers being down and us going to third string, I think defensively, Greg's done a good job of building out that depth, I would say, at least centrally with the center backs. Like, I think I could probably interchange as deep as 6 that now have experience. We look at Jonathan Gomez on the outside, like, he was in that camp briefly, but really hasn't been integrated. Bello a little bit. I think right back we're a little bit stronger. But as you progress toward the attacking side of the ball, like we've seen Leggett not even get a kit, get a number. Roldan looks to be kind of decommissioned. Why are those fringe players important to integrate early on? And, kind of some of the things that you talked about, like Mendez and others, like we're probably not going to pull them in a must win. Why does that matter? And are we seeing that now that was important, earlier in this qualifying window?
Yeah, it's not the most important aspect, right? The most important aspect is how a coach takes the most talented players in the pool, the Gio Reynas, the Pulisics, the McKennies, and uses them, and how how the team looks with those top 15 or so players. But I do think it's a good thing to talk about the fringes of the roster, because that is the area where the coach can make a difference. There's no USMNT manager who's leaving Gio Reyna or Serginho Dest off a roster. A lot of these roster decisions are locks. They are chosen by default. And so when we're analyzing the roster specifically, okay, here are the list of limited names that are in for a window or for a camp. I think it's a good thing to focus on the players who are specifically a manager's choice. You know, Brooks Lennon was a manager's choice in the last camp. His name was not in ink for any US manager. And so it's good to be able to see who is going to be our option when injuries strike, or when players get worn down, or when the unexpected happens. And also, specifically with Berhalter, we've seen reports that it takes players multiple camps to get the least bit comfortable in his system. And so there is this onboarding time. And so if it takes a player 2 or 3 camps to even get up to speed to where he can play well in the system, then it makes so much sense to be investing all of the call-ups and investing the minutes in players who are going to help the team to be stronger, and players who ultimately have a shot at improving what we can do in a World Cup, not just in a Gold Cup, not just against CONCACAF teams. Of course, qualifying is the ultimate goal right now, but with every roster, with every selection that a coach makes, the World Cup should be in view.
So we talked about kind of a lot of players, the depth chart. You know, can we get it done? You know, we got 3 games. We've got a 4-point lead on Panama. We've got 5 on Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica has to run the table if we win at home with Panama to pass us. You know, obviously the Panama game. Like, do we have enough firepower to get it done? What does that look like? You know, what do you see? How many points do you see out of this window?
Oh, we have plenty of firepower. That is definitely not the question. I do think that we'll get it done. I think I could see 4 to 6 points out of the window, and it could even be more. You know, if we get a draw or a win in Azteca and then carry through Panama, the energy and the positivity in the team going down to Costa Rica will be massive. And so a lot depends on those first 2 games. But I think 4 to 6 points is a safe call.
Yeah, I feel confident that we can draw one of those games. We played strong defensively, even away. We're not leaking tons of goals. There's been some errors, obviously, but we're not leaking goals, and we've had a strong showing at home. We've got guys like Christian Pulisic, Weah, Pepe, Peafock. We still have a Luca De La Torre. I know we're missing Weston, but even without Reyna, I think there's enough firepower there, and look forward to chat more in a couple of weeks ahead of the window.
Yeah, and I think if and when we do qualify, I feel like I do still have to say if. I think there will be a massive celebration, which 100% we're back. We missed it last time. We didn't make the World Cup, so it's right to celebrate. On the other hand, it should be an expectation, especially with how far our talent pool has come. So it's interesting to be able to have that duality. Both things are true, where yes, it's great to be back. Yes, it's also fair to expect more of this team. And it's fair not to just be, oh my goodness, we took what is clearly the best talent pool in our region and we managed to make it in third,
The fact that we will be relieved is scary. Like, the way that the schedule was set up, we should not have brought it to this window. It was set up lean on the front end. Like, this was some of the toughest games, and we still expect results on the back end, of this. But I agree with you. Like, the expectation has been raised, but I'm still going to be relieved.
Oh yes. It'll be massive.
All right, well, give Justin a follow, and we'll be on here in a couple weeks. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, and look forward to talking to you, Justin, in a couple weeks.
You too, Marcus. Take it easy.